Shalom, Israel. It's your brother Marcus G coming yet again with another Truth for Thought. First, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High. Second, I want to say, if you have not gotten your ticket to the Royal Gathering, and I will be mentioning this again later in the lesson, I urge you, I implore you, please do so. This actual gathering is a very important, very big thing. And again, I'm going to touch on the reasons for that a little later in the lesson. But I will have all the information that you would possibly need in regards to the Royal Gathering down below in the description. And I do, again, I implore you here early in the lesson. If you're not, if you're able to attend, I implore you, please do. All right. Now that I got that out of the way, I'm hoping everyone's having a happy Sabbath, a blessed Sabbath. This lesson is, "Oh, Israel, I love you." And it's not me telling you, Israel, that I love you. That is me depicting the Most High, literally telling you, I love you. All right. So we're going to jump right into scripture because we got a nice number of scripture that we're going to go through today. So we're going to jump right into scripture, and we're going to start by going to Deuteronomy 7:6, because per 1 Thessalonians 5:21, we must prove all things and hold fast that which is good. All right. So we have to prove this. I have to prove that that is the case. Okay. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy 7, verse 6. All right. And it reads, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God." Now, this is in regards to you, Israel. No other nation but you. Now, start it over. "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth." So this is every other walk of life, every other nationality biblically, above all of them. The Most High chose you, Israel. All right, we're going to go from there to Deuteronomy 14:2. All right. "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God." Again, this is in regards to nothing but you, Israel. "And the Lord hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth." Now, this again is saying the exact same thing, and it's possessive. He chose Israel to be a peculiar people unto himself. All right. And we're going to go from there to 1 Chronicles 16:13. First Chronicles 16, verse 13, and it reads, O ye seed of Israel, his servants, ye children of Jacob, his chosen one. Clearly a separation, yet again, from all other biblical nationalities, all other walks of life, as far as humans. So clearly a definite separation. All right, we're going to go from that to Exodus 6 and 7. And I know a lot of these, if you've been in the truth for a minute, these are scripture you've heard probably over and over and over, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's true. It is very, very true. Exodus 6 and 7, and it reads, and I will take you, again, this is Israel that he's referring to, and I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you a God, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And that proves that it's Israel that is being referred to, because this was after, well, this was in reference to Moses coming to be sent by the Most High to retrieve his people, Israel, from the Egyptians, from captivity and bondage under the Egyptians. All right, we're going to go from there to Exodus 16 and 12. Exodus 16 and 12. And it reads, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, not the murmurings of the children of every nationality, of Moab, of Edom, of Canaan, but of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, at even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. Very, very possessive. Okay. And we're going to get one more before we get into what I consider as almost a love letter from the Most High to Israel. And that's going to be in Baruch. But we're going to go to Isaiah 54 and 5 through 6. And there are actually several places in the Bible that one can consider as like a love letter to you, Israel, to our nation. The one in Baruch is the one that I'm going to touch on today. So Isaiah 54, verses 5 through 6. And they read, listen carefully, Israel. For thy maker is thine husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. The whole earth, the God of the whole earth shall he be called. Now, the end of that, that's not saying he's everyone's God. It literally says the Redeemer, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. But the Most High did create the whole earth. So he is the God of the whole earth. There is no other God that has created anything. There is only one. For the Lord hath called thee, Israel, this is directly to you, as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth when thou was refused, saith thy God, Israel. Okay. Now we're going to come back to Isaiah a little later. And again, that's going to be in regards to the royal gathering. But now I want to go to Baruch chapter 4. So we go into the Apocrypha. Baruch chapter 4. And we're getting we're going to get this whole chapter as well as chapter 5, which is much shorter. Okay. Baruch chapter 4, verse 1, and it reads, "This is the book of the commandments of God and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die." Israel, what that is saying, basically, this is how you can differentiate between the 1/3 and the 2/3. All of you that keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, you shall come to life in the day of judgment. But such as those that leave it, or the 2/3, quote unquote 2/3, shall die. There is no gray area. It literally says there's life and there's death. That is it. Okay. The next verse is going to let you know who it is that this is concerning. "Turn thee, O Jacob," which is you, Israel, "and take hold of it. Walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated." So I know many of you have heard about the enlightened ones and all of that. But if you look at this, for Israel to be illuminated, who really are the enlightened ones? That's just a question I pose to you. Verse 3, "Give not thine honor to another, nor the things that are profitable unto thee to a strange nation." For all of Israel that cleave to the heathen, yet again, and this can be found in several places in the Bible, you should not cleave to another nation. You shouldn't cleave to the heathen. This is yet another warning. It's literally a warning. Verse 4, "O Israel, happy are we, for things are pleasing to God, are made known unto us." That last word, unto us, not everyone. Not everyone. I cannot stress that enough. Verse 5, "Be of good cheer, my people, the memorial of Israel." Verse 6, "Ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved God to wrath." ye were delivered unto the enemies. So a lot of people look at things and they say, bad things happen because of Satan or, and I will tell you, all good and all evil, the Most High's word. All good and all evil. It's literally saying that. And there are people that will say, that's a bad thing. Why would God do a bad thing? Well, he's the one that creates all good and all evil. All right. Not only that, he loves us, yet we weren't keeping his law, statutes, and commandments, which if you read in the Bible, you will see in several places, that is love to him. So it's like loving someone, but they don't love you back. So yes, he delivered us to our enemies, to captivity, because he was pissed. He was angry. He loved us. We were loving him, and then started cleaving to the heathen nations, started, quote unquote, doing our own thing. And he got jealous. He's a jealous God. He got jealous. He got angered. So he allowed this, what people will say is bad. He allowed this bad thing to happen to us. It's one of the curses in Deuteronomy. They all were applied to us, to Israel. But let's keep going. Verse 7, for ye provoked him that made you, so the Most High made the nation of Israel, by sacrificing unto devils and not to God. Instead of following the Most High, our people start following Allah, Buddha, false gods. Okay. Verse 8, ye have forgotten the everlasting God that brought you up, and ye have grieved Jerusalem that nursed you. So, although the Most High loved us, we turned our backs on him. And even the land we resided in was beginning to grieve and mourn. Let's see why. For I saw the captivity of my sons and daughters, which the everlasting brought upon them. So this is, for lack of better terms, almost the land of Jerusalem speaking. Okay. And it's saying, I saw the captivity of my sons and daughters. I saw it happen, which the Most High brought upon them. Verse 11, let's keep reading. With joy did I nourish them, but sent them away with weeping and mourning. Verse 12, Let no man rejoice over me, a widow and forsaken of many. For the sins of my children am left desolate. The land of Jerusalem is now left desolate. What it was supposed to be the home to, its sons and daughters, which it saw go into captivity, now it's not occupied by them anymore because they departed from the law of God. Again, goes back to those curses back in Deuteronomy. Okay. Verse 13. They knew not his statutes, nor walked in the ways of his commandments, nor trod in the paths of discipline in his righteousness. Those type of things right now, that's going on right now. That's going on right now. You got people of the nation of Israel and our pastors of Christian churches, which congregate on Sunday, which is a pagan tradition to worship the sun god Ra, another one of those false gods, which brought about the wrath and anger of the Most High. I mean, we got things like that going on right now at an increasing rate. Verse 14, let them that dwell about Zion come, and remember ye the captivity of my sons and daughters, which the everlasting have brought upon them. For he hath brought a nation upon them from far, a shameless nation, and of strange language, who never reverenced old man, nor pitied child. So here is this introduction of this strange land or strange nation. They spoke different than Israel. They had no regards for life. You could be the youngest all the way to the oldest, to the eldest. They didn't care. These have carried away the dear beloved children of the widow. The widow here again is Jerusalem. Our homeland. And left her that was alone and desolate without daughters. Again, even our land, because we didn't keep law, statutes, and commandments. Even our land mourned. Our homeland mourned. Verse 17, but what can I help you? Verse 18, for he that brought these plagues upon you will deliver you from the hands of your enemies. Wait a minute. This letter, although it started off kind of bad, it's looking like it's getting good now. Verse 19, go your way, O my children. Okay, now this getting personal again. Go your way, for I am left desolate. I have put off the clothing of peace and put upon me the sackcloth of my prayer. I will cry unto the everlasting in my days. Jerusalem right now is crying. I mean, literally, the land, the soil He's crying. He's been crying since way back when. Verse 21, be of good cheer, O my children. Cry unto the Lord, and he will deliver you from the power and hand of the enemies. So now we saw a demise, what almost looked like a demise, but now we see a glimmer of hope in this letter. Verse 22, for my hope is in the everlasting, that he will save you. And joy is come unto me from the Holy One because of the mercy which shall soon come unto you, Israel, from the everlasting, our Savior. For I sent you out with mourning and weeping, but God will give you to me again with joy and gladness forever. Again, this is the land of Jerusalem. If you can fathom the land actually saying this. Verse 24, like as now, the neighbors of Sion have seen your captivity, so shall they see shortly your salvation from our God, which shall come upon you with great glory and brightness of the everlasting. Every time you see the everlasting here in Baruch, it's in reference to the Most High. Okay. Verse 25, my children, suffer patiently the wrath that is come upon you from God. For thine enemy hath persecuted thee, but shortly thou shalt see his destruction, and shalt tread upon his neck. Verse 26, my delicate ones have gone rough ways, and were taken away as a flock caught of the enemies. So for all of you, I want to stop right there, because we've seen enemies in a couple of verses here in Baruch 4. For all of you that have bought into this deceptive ass misconception that you are in, if you reside in the United States, you are in the land of the free. Now, what you are in is the land of your enemies. You're in the land of your enemies. How many nations do you know call their enemies free if they're in there? Most of the time they're prisoners of war, and they're in prisoners of war camps. But our nation, a large majority of our nation, have cleaved to the heathen, because that's the saying of the heathen. Oh, this is America, the land of the free. That's their saying. Why Israel are we saying that? The whole reason of us being brought here was captivity. There is nothing that speaks freedom from the word captivity. They're not synonymous. In fact, they're the exact opposite. Verse 27. Be of good comfort, O my children, and cry unto God, for ye shall be remembered of him that brought these things upon you. Again, it wasn't the devil that had us enslaved. The Most High did this. Again, it's in the curses in Deuteronomy. And the reason I keep saying it is because people will say things like, the devil is the reason my son got shot. No, all things, good and evil, the Most High is responsible for. You literally giving the deceiver way more credit than you should be. And that is just point blank, period, the truth. Verse 28, for as it was your mind to go astray from God, Israel, so being returned, seek him 10 times more. That means we, the Most High, cast us away. What the land of Jerusalem is saying right now is to be returned, Israel, seek him 10 times more. Verse 29, for he hath brought these plagues upon you, shall bring you everlasting joy with your salvation. How would you get such salvation? For the last couple of weeks, I've been doing lessons. It started with judgment, and I did the book of life. You want to, when it comes to time for your judgment, first you want to keep our law, statutes, and commandments, because everything is documented. Okay? Then in that day of judgment for you, because everyone goes through judgment individually, you go before the Most High. All right? It's going to be a couple of books. Again, I said earlier, everything is recorded. One of them books is the book of life. To be recorded in the book of life, you're recorded based on your works and your faith. Now, when you see things like verse 27 here, be of good comfort. The reason you are to be of good comfort is because you should have faith that the Most High is going to deliver you. So that's the faith. You must believe in the Most High. You must believe in the Son, in Yahweh Shai. Then there's the works. There's the keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Now, contrary to the misteaching and seriously flawed doctrine of the church, which says that the New Testament did away with the law. They're basically trying to say that Jesus did away, or Yahweh Shai did away with the law, when Yahweh Shai came to serve as to fulfill a prophecy. The prophecy was that basically he would be the last sacrifice. He was the sacrificial lamb. Okay. Which is why we no longer do sacrifices. In today's time, we don't do sacrifices. Okay. But that doesn't mean he did away with the law. He literally was to fulfill a prophecy. This prophecy was not for everybody, which is why he says, I'm only sent for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So going back to, the everlasting joy with your salvation, 1/3 is going to see it. 1/3 is going to have that everlasting joy. 1/3 is going to be the elect. 1/3 is going to have that salvation. Verse 30, take a good heart, O Jerusalem, for he that gave thee that name will comfort thee. So now it's switching. It went from Jerusalem talking to Jerusalem being addressed. Miserable are they that afflicted thee and rejoiced at thy fall. Miserable are the cities which thy children serve. Miserable is she that received thy sons. Verse 33, for as she rejoiced at thy ruin and was glad of thy fall, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation. So now we going back and looking at this strange nation that took us from Jerusalem, that spoke a strange language. That was back up in verse, let's see, what verse was that? Oh, verse 15. The shameless nation that had no pity. It didn't matter if you were an Israelite infant or an Israelite elder at the age of 105. Okay. Verse 34. And this is starting to get good. For I will take away the rejoicing of her great multitude, and her pride shall be turned into mourning. That strange place is a prideful place too. Very prideful, vain. For fire shall come upon her from the everlasting, from the Most High, long to endure, and she shall be inhabited of devils for a great time. O Jerusalem, look about thee towards the east, and behold the joy that cometh unto thee from God. Wait a minute. There's a direction here. Now, I don't believe in coincidence and irony, but for the sake of conversation, I will say it is quite ironic that the United States, it was a strange place, or the people that brought Israelites to the United States spoke a strange language. They were a strange people. And they definitely do not have regard for life, young or old. You see it all the time. They'll go to war, man. They don't care who they kill. While when they first brought us here for captivity, they didn't care who they killed. They killed embryos that young. Not only that, it just so happens to be to the west of Jerusalem. And here we see, oh, Jerusalem, or it's saying Israel, look about thee towards the east. So that would be wherever Jerusalem or Israel are, it's westward of the actual place of Jerusalem. Verse 37, lo, thy sons come, whom thou sendest away. They come gathered together from the east to the west by the words of the Holy One, rejoicing in the glory of God. I want to get, now this is where I'm going to go into. And my beloved brother Mike, yesterday in his lesson, he said, this is where I'm going to put in a plug. Yes, I'm going to put in a plug right here. And again, this is in regards to the royal gathering. But I want you to listen to, and I'm going to read this again. And I want you to understand why the royal gathering is such a big deal. Lo, thy sons come, whom thou sendest away. They come gathered together from the east and the west by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the glory of God. So with that, I want to go back to Isaiah 54 and 7. But keep that, I want you to keep that in mind. It says from the east to the west. It doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter what they're involved in right now. What's happening is a gathering of Israel from the east to the west, okay? So let's go to Isaiah 54 and 7. And we're going to come back to Baruch because we got to get Baruch chapter 5. So we're going to Isaiah 54 and 7. And I said earlier when we was in Isaiah, I'm going to come back here for something. And this is why. For a small moment, and this is the Most High. Okay, this is the Most High that this is coming from. For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with grace, with great mercies will I gather thee. Okay? In today's time, it doesn't matter if you're in a camp, because most of gatherings that camps have is just inclusive of that camp or subsidiaries of that camp. So let's say, for instance, IUIC. If the IUIC has an event, more than likely, IUIC Memphis will be there. IUICs from from East Coast, West Coast, they'll be there, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that, let's say, the HOI will be there. This gathering, the royal gathering, is a call to all the kings, queens, princes, and princesses. It doesn't matter if you're in a camp. It doesn't matter if you're not in a camp. This gathering is for everyone, from every Israelite, from the east, like it said back in Baruch chapter 4, the very last verse, gathering from the east to the west, the royal gathering It doesn't matter what you have, what you're involved in. If you're involved in the camp, we don't care. We want you to come. We are having a royal gathering. We are all royalty. Again, I'm leaving the descriptions, everything regarding the royal gathering. And I'm leaving all details in the description. But I want to get one more thing in regards to the gathering. And this is another oldie but goodie. If you've been in the truth for a minute, but we're going to go to Zephaniah. We're going to go to Zephaniah chapter 2. And we're going to get verses 1 and 2. Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. It doesn't say gather yourself if you're not in a camp. It doesn't say gather yourself if you are in a camp. It doesn't say gather yourself only in the west. It doesn't say gather yourself only in the north, south, or east. What it says is gather yourselves together, ye. Gather yourself, O nation not desired. But verse 2, there's a warning. Before the decree bring forth, before the day as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. Now, we're in captivity. We've been in captivity before. This isn't the first time. And each time it's the result of the Lord's anger for us not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. One could pretty much say this is a commandment for us to gather ourselves. So for those, again, who've not reserved your seat, this is a clear and present opportunity to be involved in something that is clearly commanded. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only time that it may happen, but I'm telling you, this is a for sure time that is definitely happening. My brothers, my beloved brothers, Mike Malice will be there. My beloved brother, King Porter, will be there. I will be there. Based on Zephaniah 2 and 1, it almost pretty much seems like you should be there. All right. With that, again, I'm going to have all information in the description in regards to the royal gathering. All kings, all queens, all princes and princesses. It does not matter if you're in the camp. It does not matter if you're not in the camp. If you're in the truth, we definitely want you to be there. If you're not in the truth, we still want you to be there. You're still part of Israel. But now understand, again, we spoke about salvation. I spoke about salvation back in Baruch. If you're not in the truth, that means 9 times out of 10, you're not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Understand this. You will not even be able to keep in the kingdom if you don't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. And you can find that in Revelation 22. And I want to say verse 14, either 14 or 18. Hold on, let me get it for you. I'm going to get that for you. so that it won't be misunderstood. Revelations 22, and I want to say it's 14. It is. Revelation 22 and 14. Blessed are they that do his commandment, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. That's one of the criteria. That's because keeping the law, statutes, and commandments is love to the Most High. I spoke about that in my commandments lesson that I did. I even left in the description of that where you can find all the commandments in the Bible. All right. So again, I'm going to have all the details in regards to the royal gathering down in the description. That was my plug for, or my little time that I was inserting to really talk about the royal gathering. Now let's get back and go to Baruch chapter 5, verse 1. Going back to the Apocrypha, to Baruch chapter 5, verse 1. Only 9 verses. And we're going to finish up this quote unquote love letter. Okay? Because where we last read back at 4 and 37, it's starting to really get good because it's speaking of rejoicing, the Most High's chosen people, peculiar people. They're starting to gather from the east to the west. So let's carry on to Baruch 5, verse 1. Put off, O Jerusalem, and this is regards to the land itself. Because remember, back in verse 4, Jerusalem, the land said, I'm mourning, and I've put on, in verse 20, I have put off the clothing of peace and put upon me the sackcloth of my prayer. I will cry unto the Most High, or unto the everlasting in my days. Okay, so now we go to Baruch 5, verse 1. And it says, put off, O Jerusalem, that garment of mourning and affliction, and put on the comeliness of the glory that cometh from God forever. Cast about thee a double garment of the righteousness which cometh from God, and set a diadem on thine head of the glory of the everlasting. So you see, the land of Jerusalem, which was in sackcloth and afflicting itself. And that's what we used to, that's what we used to do when we pray. We were royalty, but we would disrobe our royal garments and put on a sackcloth when we prayed. We would afflict ourselves, even the way that we presented ourselves, because we normally present looking like royalty. Okay. Where was I? And set a diadem, I was at verse 2, and set a diadem on thine head of the glory of the everlasting. So now Jerusalem is taking off that garment of affliction. Not only is it now back at one point in time, I think it said it was robed in peace, and it disrobed from peace to go to mourning and affliction. But now it's saying it's being dressed with glory and righteousness. In fact, there's a crown on Jerusalem's head. For God will shew thy brightness unto every country under heaven. For thy name shall be called of God forever, the peace of righteousness and the glory of God's worship. Arise, O Jerusalem. And I want you all to understand, just like everywhere you see everlasting here, and I'm telling you, it's the Most High. Jerusalem is also Israel. I mean, it's our homeland. So arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about towards the east, and behold thy children gathered from the west unto the east by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of God. I got to stop right there, because that's the one thing that I didn't mention when I did my plug about the royal gathering. There will be a plenty of rejoicing, just like it says here. Just like it says here. Verse 6, for they departed from thee on foot. This is going back to talking about the actual land. For they departed from thee on foot and were led away of their enemies. But God bringeth them unto the exalted with glory as children of the kingdom. So wait a minute. Jerusalem got a new look. And is being referred to as the kingdom. In Revelations, you'll read about the new earth and new heaven. And the new earth will have the kingdom. Some people refer to it as the New Jerusalem. Some people just refer to it as the kingdom. But Jerusalem got a new look. And the ones that are being returned to Jerusalem, they're exalted. Okay, let's keep going. For God hath appointed that every high hill and banks of long continuance should be cast down, and valleys filled up, to make even the ground that Israel may go safely in the glory of God. So this is going into the last day. It's going into judgment time. Verse 8, moreover, even the woods and every sweet smelling tree shall overshadow Israel by the commandment of God. For God shall lead Israel with joy into the light of his glory, with the mercy and righteousness that cometh from him. Israel. This does not prove to you that the Most High loves you. I don't know what will. So I pose a question to you. When you were young, especially if you're as seasoned as me, I'm not going to give away my age, but back in the day, if I did something I wasn't supposed to do, it angered my parents. Thus, I would get a whooping and sent to my room. That would be a lesson that I learned from, and I would do what I'm supposed to do. And the very parents that out of their anger had broke me, they still loved me. Still had, they didn't do things to me. They didn't beat me, just they punished me for that. I learned from that, and they still love me. They didn't put me out of the house. They simply made me go to my room. The Most High was angered by us, Israel. Because he loved us and we didn't love him. He whooped us, sent us to another room in his house, because he made this thing that we know as earth. So he sent us to another room. But the Most High loves you so much that if you learn the lesson from that whooping and you do right, keep the law, statutes, and commandments, that he will still show mercy and righteousness to you. Now, unfortunately, 2/3 of Israel, even with that, the Most High having that much love for us, they're still not going to love him back. And that's just true. All the other nationalities don't even have a chance to receive the love that 1/3 of Israel will receive. And that's coming into the New Jerusalem. And back then, when I used to get whippings, this is something that my mom and dad used to always say. Son, if we didn't love you, we wouldn't even care, let alone discipline you for something that you did that is not right or righteous. So when you look at the curses, a lot of people may look at the curses in a negative light, but if the Most High didn't love you, he would have just killed you. But he loved you so much that he'd rather just whip you. Let you learn your lesson. Repent. And do what's righteous. Keep the laws, statutes, and commandments. Because he loves you so much if you do that. Baruch 5, verse 9. For God shall lead you with joy. He's going to do this happily in the light of his glory, with the mercy and righteousness that come from him. He will lead you right back home. So with that, Israel, I bid you shalom. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. Until next time, and I love you all. Make sure again, if you have not reserved your spot and your tickets, this is not about whether we don't care if you're in a camp or not. That matters not. What matters is we're doing something we're supposed to be doing. We're gathering. Oh, nation, we are gathered. So I bid you shalom. Till next time, it's your brother Marcus G. Love you guys. I'm out.